Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, November 2nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It is crunch time, election style. Candidates making final appearances, voters scrambling to get their ballots done and in. And as KPBS reporter Shalina Chatlani shows us, counting and reporting will be a bit different this year.
Tomorrow is Election Day, which means that voters are rushing to go cast their ballots in person at a Super Poll location or turn in their mail-in ballots at a site like this, a library in Kensington. Already, the Registrar of Voters Office has received 1.1 million ballots, which means that tabulation could go a lot faster this year. Usually on election night, ballots are counted as a percentage of all precincts reporting. That won't change, except precincts are consolidated, and the 572 precincts will be reporting from the 235 Super Poll locations, chosen by the Registrar of Voters Office, says Registrar Michael Vu.
Election results are going to be different. Normally, on the first report out on election night, shortly when the polls close, are all the mail ballots that we were able to verify and tabulate into the tabulation system. And we release those results. That comprises generally the mail ballots. But because the polling locations are going to be open 3 days before Election Day, we are now going to be able to count and tabulate the polling place ballots across those 235 sites.
That means the first set of election results revealed when the polls close at 8 p.m. on November 3rd will not just be those mail-in ballots, but it will also be polling place ballots that were cast 3 days before the election. But those mail-in ballots are still allowed to be postmarked by election night and can get to the registrar's office up to 17 days after the election.
Other subsequent reports are going to be from all the respective polling locations on election day that will be coming into us. That is what is known as the election night count. But we know that there are going to most likely be hundreds of thousands of mail ballots that are going to be dropped off at any one of the 235 sites, any one of the 126 mail ballot drop-off locations. When we certify the election, we are given 30 days to certify the election, as is when it will be final.
So there may still be some delays in certifying especially close races. The final count has to be done by December 3rd. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
The pandemic has spurred record-setting gun sales across the nation. And now, as KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us, gun store operators say fears of riots and contentious election cycle are driving sales.
We're practicing learning how to shoot responsibly.
The world is getting more increasingly crazy, so in times like this you want to know how to defend yourself just in case something bad happens.
Ramona resident Kathy Goldstein recently took her daughter Georgia to Poway Weapons and Gear to teach her how to shoot.
I think it's just important that we all know how to defend ourselves.
And they're not alone. Gun stores across the nation and in San Diego County have seen record increases in sales, at first due to coronavirus concerns, but now that's changing.
It originally started with the pandemic, and then it went into with a lot of the riots. People got scared about that, and then now with the election coming up and more riots, we have been nonstop since March.
Danielle James is the general manager of Poway Weapons and Gear. She says normally during election cycles they see an uptick in sales, but this is different, and right now they're having a hard time keeping products on the shelves.
Supply and demand's the highest it's ever been, and we can't get the stuff in.
James says many of their recent sales are to first-time gun buyers.
It's a lot of first-time gun buyers. We have seen a huge increase in first-time buyers. We've had to add a ton more classes to accommodate all those first-time buyers.
At their indoor range, Poway Weapons and Gear has more than doubled their amount of trainers to keep up with demand.
We are very, very big on education. Our main focus is people being able to be educated on their firearm, being competent, confident, and confident. lot of people are looking for more shotguns and handguns. Those are usually the two that new gun buyers buy.
James also says there's an ammo shortage right now and popular calibers can be hard to find. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Hospitals are always planning ahead for disasters that could send a wave of patients their way, and the tensions around Election Day have them on high alert. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento tells us how hospitals are planning for emergency events they hope don't happen.
For us to prepare in a vacuum, it's nonsensical.
The job of Monique Imroth is to always be ready for the worst case scenarios. But the UC San Diego Health Director of Emergency Management says she often hopes she's never right.
No one wishes they were wrong more often than me, right? But that said, the leaders of this organization depend on me and my team to say, we think this could be a problem.
Imroth also co-chairs the San Diego Healthcare Disaster Coalition and says all of the region's hospitals plan year-round for events that could bring a mass of patients, like wildfires, a COVID-19 surge, but also this election.
We've seen civil unrest around the country just this past weekend with stopping politicians from moving freely, stopping voters from voting at the polls. So we look at that as the collective and say, what is the potential that could happen here? And then we plan for that.
That includes disruptions to traffic patterns. Past demonstrations have blocked highways, so they're prepared to reroute emergency vehicles or employees coming to work. And they're on alert in case any demonstrations that start peaceful turn violent.
There could be crush injuries, all the way up to knifing or gunshots that could induce trauma. So we're prepared for all of those challenges.
And if any event causes mass injuries, they may increase staff, assess which current patients could be discharged to make more room, and they have emergency outdoor tents that could be used for triage.
Which is French for sorting those patients into critical, moderate, minor, and then those that just are what we call walkie-talkie patients, maybe just a Band-Aid or a stitch. We sort them there. That helps us figure out who needs to go into the hospital and get treatment first.
She says the routine planning region-wide helps ensure hospitals can balance demands from a mass event with the rest of the community's needs.
We have each other on a group text, and we're texting each other in the community to see what's going on, what support is needed, and we help each other support and plan and prepare because we all need to be able to lift our weight during a disaster so that everybody's patients can get taken care of.
She says preparations aren't just limited to election night. They're on alert all the way through Inauguration Day. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
A right-wing Facebook group based in East County has been suspended. Defend East County, which reached 22,000 members, was established after violence that followed racial justice protests in La Mesa last May. The original page is no longer on Facebook. However, a smaller group called DEC Conservatives is up and using their logo. You may recall 50th District Democratic candidate Amar Campa-Najjar faced backlash for his interview with the group's leader last month. Every week, I hold my breath. That's how one business owner says life is nowadays as she waits to hear every Tuesday whether San Diego County has moved into the most restrictive tier for businesses. Today, no additional deaths and 307 new coronavirus cases were reported. KPBS reporter John Carroll talked to the owner of a North Park bar about what it's like doing business in a time of COVID-19.
Peck's Bar in North Park has been catering to the LGBTQ community for decades. Rosa Butner owns the place, and she'll be the first to tell you, since the pandemic hit, it's been a roller coaster ride of opening and closing, along with changes in regulations. First, Peck's, like every other bar in California, was closed for about 3 months following the governor's stay-at-home order. When the bar was first allowed to reopen in June, Butner says she spent about $8,000 on safety upgrades.
We made all those changes here and also to the interior. That only lasted 2 weeks.
Closed again with no revenue coming in. Then about a month later, news that bars could reopen as long as they served food.
Then I thought, okay, we have the space in the back. Everything had to be outdoors. So we basically built an outdoor restaurant.
In that regard, Butner was lucky. Unlike most bars that have had to transform space in the street, Peck's has this back area that was being used for employee parking.
The first telltale sign is the asphalt. But then when you walk over here, there's no doubt left when you see the old white parking lines.
Butner had wanted to use this for outdoor bar space for years, but the city wouldn't give her a permit until the pandemic hit. It took about 3 weeks to transform the parking lot.
We became Peck's Al Fresco.
Creating an outdoor kitchen meant running electricity, water, and sewer lines. They had to buy new furniture, all of it an expensive venture.
Just on the outdoor section, not counting the indoor, we spent probably $50,000.
Now, Butner and her crew hope for the best week to week. If San Diego falls into the purple tier, the restaurant portion can stay open, but the bar itself will have to close again.
I don't even care to make money. I just want to break even and keep my employees employed. That's basically my goal.
Does it cause you sleepless nights?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
The Vista Unified School District has shifted 3 more schools to online learning for 2 weeks after more COVID-19 cases were reported. The change affects Vista High School, Madison Middle School, and Roosevelt Middle School. In an online update, the district said 13 students and 1 staff member have tested positive for COVID-19 since in-person learning resumed on October 20th. The district said all cases were contracted off campus. 2 UC San Diego vaccine trials that were put on hold are getting underway this week. These trailers in National City are for the Johnson & Johnson trial, which is scheduled to resume tomorrow. AstraZeneca's restarted today using mobile vaccine clinics. Both clinical trials were in phase 3, but paused when people started getting sick.
Part of the reason we want people to understand that these are common is they will probably occur again. These are large trials. AstraZeneca, 30,000 people. Johnson & Johnson, 60,000 people. It would be surprising if we don't have another pause.
Once it was verified the vaccine didn't cause the illness, the trials were given the go-ahead to resume. An alfresco patio has come to Oceanside in hopes of bringing new dining customers to local restaurants. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne gives us a look at this popular idea.
Diners looking to grab a bite to eat in downtown Oceanside will now be able to enjoy their food at the new Oceanside Fountain Patio.
We do outdoor dining at the fountain because there's plenty of space. There, it's outside, it's by the fountain, you can see it. It's in a central area of the downtown.
The new open-air patio, funded by the city, can be found just outside of the Oceanside Public Library near the fountains. Main Street Oceanside, organizers of the patio and farmers market on Thursday mornings, says the new patio area will benefit market vendors and local restaurants who have limited patio seating.
That way they could order food from any restaurant around there and be able to do takeout and be able to sit at the fountain and be able to enjoy their meal there.
The patio will be open Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and will be manned during these times. This project has allowed Main Street Oceanside to bring back 2 employees who were previously laid off due to the pandemic. They will monitor the patio during the day and sanitize each table after every use. Only patrons with food will be allowed to take a seat. So far, the patio seems to be a great hit among Oceanside visitors. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
President Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden are making their final pitch to Americans ahead of Election Day tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we can put an end to a president that has failed to protect this nation. And tomorrow, we can put an end to a president that has fanned the flames of hate all across this country.
Under my leadership, our economy is now growing at the fastest rate ever recorded.
President Trump hit up 4 battleground states for 5 rallies today, beginning in North Carolina and ending in Michigan. Both candidates made stops in the critical battleground state of Pennsylvania. Biden spent most of the day reaching out to voters in the state. VP pick Kamala Harris after campaigning earlier in Cleveland, Ohio. KPBS will have special election coverage tomorrow night with a full hour of results and reaction. That starts at 10 o'clock. You'll also be able to listen on KPBS radio and stream our coverage at kpbs.org. And if you need a ride to a polling place tomorrow, there are plenty of options for free or discounted rides. The San Diego Metropolitan Transit System and North County Transit District are hosting Free Ride Day. Bus and rail services will be free for everyone to use throughout the county. Uber is offering half-off round-trip rides up to $7 each way to and from polling locations. And Lyft is offering half-off one ride up to $10 to polls or drop boxes. Climate change was poised to break through this year as a political issue that could help steer the national debate. But then the pandemic happened. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has more.
California is enduring unprecedented wildfires. San Diego's Valley Fire was the largest locally, with scores of homes and more than 16,000 acres left blackened by the flames.
Warmer temperatures, drier fuels, and this is leading to these extreme fire seasons.
Tom Corringham is a researcher at the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography.
This year, being an example, in the western U.S., we still have fires burning now in Colorado. We had fires in California, historical levels of acres burned.
More than 4 million acres burned this year alone. 31 people died, more than 9,200 structures were destroyed. The latest fire in Orange County just last week forced 100,000 people from their homes. On top of that, scientists saw record high temperatures, 130 degrees in Death Valley in August. Then September, the hottest month ever.
We're seeing these higher temperatures. The higher temperatures leads to melting of the ice caps in the Arctic, in Greenland, and in Antarctica. And that leads to sea level rise.
And sea level rise contributes to coastal flooding. The scientific community says those events are all calling cards of a changing climate, something researchers have been warning about for decades.
There's no way that these fires are natural. This is way, way outside of any possible natural occurrence. So this is this is climate change. Climate change is here at our doorstep.
Scripps Institution of Oceanography researcher Jeffrey Severinghouse found ancient evidence of change as he examined ice cores in polar regions.
There's lots of undeniable evidence. It's no longer remotely in debate.
And in California, climate change has broken through and become part of the political debate.
In California elections, we see a lot of discussion about climate change, in part because both sides recognize that it's a real physical challenge to our state.
Thad Kauser is a political scientist at UCSD. He says major party candidates in San Diego County and California ignore climate change at their own peril. Kauser says the issue is important because voters are getting firsthand proof that a changing climate will affect them.
When you see wildfires and when you see seawater rise and the floods that come from that, when you see hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, these physical embodiments of climate change, I think, are what will bring it from an issue that right now is in the top 10 of most voters' concerns to an issue that will be a top tier issue that every politician will need to address.
But California's acceptance of climate change has not broken through in a meaningful way in the national political arena. Climate change was a discussion issue in the debate between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Trump touted the clean air and water under his administration. Biden called climate change the existential crisis of our time. However, the candidates spent most of the time on the topic attacking each other's economic policies. UCSD professor David Victor says the national discussion has evolved.
During the primary season, there was a huge amount of attention to climate because this is one of the areas where the Democratic candidates differentiated themselves. Once you go into the general, this election is largely a referendum on the incumbent, as most elections that involve incumbents are.
Victor says the national debate needs to start looking like the debate in California. He says everyone has to be involved in the solution.
We in California are now reliably on board with the need for swift action on climate change, and we've got to recognize that we as a state are less than 1% of global emissions. And so everything we do here needs to be evaluated through the lens of how it increases the odds that other places do similar things.
Victor says climate change has to be part of the national discussion because dealing with climate change requires a national solution. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Some big changes coming in our weather, not until the end of the week. But boy, looks like we're going to see some winter-like conditions here. For now, though, temperatures slowly cooling into Tuesday with the onshore flow for Election Day, so plenty of morning clouds. And then the flow is going to start to shift offshore again Wednesday into Thursday. A warm-up's on the way. Thursday should be the warmest day of the week. And then after that, we'll start to see some cooling coming in. Significantly cooler Friday into Saturday. Some places could see some showers. And we'll also be looking at strong gusty winds. So there's some significant change for the end of the week. For tonight, it's more of the same. We'll see clouds around, temperatures cooling to 50 in Oceanside, San Diego's 59, 48 in Ramona and El Cajon, 56. Mount Laguna at 47, and here in Borrego Springs, 58. Now for tomorrow, temperatures a little more comfortable near the coast in the interior, lots of sunshine, and it should be warm, but with the flow turning offshore, Thursday, later Wednesday into Thursday, will be quite warm. And as we take a look at our temperatures tomorrow, should be pretty nice. Oceanside, San Diego, clouds and sun. Ramona's at 83, El Cajon 84, and Borrego Springs is at 92, Campo at 82. Now, as we check out the forecast, here you can see the warm-up coming Wednesday and Thursday. Then after that, look at how cool it gets. There could be some showers around too, starting by Friday night. As we head inland, very warm Wednesday. Thursday's hot. Now look at Friday and Saturday. Saturday in the low 60s. And as we head into the mountains, temperatures will be on the rise until Friday. Saturday, some clouds are only in the low 40s. And even here in the desert, significant change coming, heating up. And then it gets really cool here on Saturday. And for KPBS News, I am meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Dia de los Muertos altars are paying tribute to lives lost to the coronavirus in our county. It's part of the San Diego COVID-19 Victims Memorial Project put together by volunteers. They're setting up displays around the county, including this one outside the Sherman Heights Community Center. The Day of the Dead altars are open to any family and are cross-cultural.
I've heard that from many families, that the fact they couldn't hold a hand, they couldn't say goodbye in person was really troubling to them. So they're looking at altars as a way to reconnect in a spiritual way. And I think that's made these people who died in isolation from COVID even more welcomed back to these altars that we see going up around the community.
Altars are set up for families to visit in some of the region's hardest hit zip codes, including National City and Chula Vista. Latinos account for 62% of coronavirus cases and 50% of deaths in San Diego County. Faith and community leaders united with former gang members from across San Diego today in a public effort to call for a season of peace. Here's KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer.
The Season of Peace campaign asks gangs to agree to stop shootings from Thanksgiving through January 1st, 2021. The Community Assistance Support Team and other local partners will work with San Diego communities and youth impacted by violence.
A Season of Peace is our No Shots Fired campaign to end gang violence, especially as it relates to gun violence. The entire community is invited to participate in this campaign. A Season of Peace is about encouraging the conversation of nonviolence.
The campaign will include community walks of peace, street-side memorial services, faith-sponsored peace meals, and organized outreach. They also plan ceasefire agreements with gang leaders and tree planting in honor of those who have died because of community violence.
The greatest threat to the Black and brown community is gun violence. More than 92% of gun homicide victims killed before the age of 18 in California are Black and Hispanic.
With the coronavirus disrupting traditional violence intervention efforts, there has been a rise in gang and gun violence in San Diego County. A San Diego crime report says there was a 37% increase in homicides reported to law enforcement in the San Diego region from January to June of 2020 compared to the same time frame last year.
It has become normalized for us to grow up in communities with gangs and violence. We're here to lift a message of hope. We're here to lift a message of we care and we love you as our neighbors, as our families that suffer.
This is the 8th year that the Community Assistance Support Team has brought their service efforts to individuals and families impacted by gun violence. Jacob Air, KPBS News.
The Aztecs football team is off to a strong start this season. SDSU beat Utah State in its first road game of the year by a score of 38-7. The team is showing more offense under new head coach Brady Hoke. Running back Greg Bell ran for a career-high 157 yards. The Aztecs will play their next 2 games at their temporary home in Carson starting Friday against San Jose State. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And a reminder, join us at 10 o'clock tomorrow night for your election coverage. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.